One of the most interesting things about the date is your lyrics. Do you work to particular themes? I mean, it sounds like there's a theme, obviously, to the new album, but
Yeah.
is that how you work? You take a theme and you run with it and see how far you can push it?
On that album we did, because the two albums, Updated and Sedated, the first two albums, were, I guess it was just writing songs, and each song was an isolation of every other song on the album. They sound like the date because of how we sound, but we didn't really try, you sit there, you get a good idea, and then you write it out, and there's your song. Whereas, like, for MASTERDATE, we've gone a little bit further, and we can actually be thematic. And once you get to that point where you have a theme, and you're actually looking at it and you're going, this is what we're going to do, two things happen. One, it gets harder, because great ideas that don't fit the theme don't get a Guernsey. But when you're wondering what to write, you've already got a little bit of a mission statement that you can look at and go, what am I trying to say here? Because it is about, we're not trying to just say the same old stuff. We're trying to think, if you listen to this album, not only will you get the lyrics clearly on what, and it's not doom and gloom by any means, it is humour. Because you've got to be able to look at it with a little bit of humour in there and actually say to people, the world comes, first of all, grab your beer, cheers, and then obviously some kind of small hand axe. Well, that's probably where I'd go immediately, and of course, hiking boots, don't forget your hiking boots. And consequently, across this time, we saw this program, after we got this album written, which was written probably January of 2014, we would have finished it somewhere around there. And then as we started telling people about, and they're like, oh, what's this about? We're doing this. They said, oh, have you ever seen this TV show out of America called, I think it's called The Doomsday Prepper. And of course, no one had seen it, because where I live, it's not like we've got a lot of the TV going on. And then lo and behold, what we thought was like an illuminating theme, there's a whole world out there that is just dead sure that the whole world's going to finish, which was sort of one way of looking at what we were saying, was we're in there, it might not be the world, it could be the plague, it could be but all these guys on the show had different angles on it. So that was quite interesting. I think there's a whole world out there that's well into the thought that life could change, and they just want to be ready for it.
So the date really don't sound like any other band out there. Tell us about your influences collectively, and also what you add to those influences to get to where you are.
I think drummer is rock. He's into 4/4. He's into the Angels. He's into AC/DC. He's into, and that's one side of him. He's into Stevie Ray Vaughan, the guitarist. Rob. He's into Stevie Ray Vaughan. He's a guitarist. He's into anything where there's a lot going on. He's very melodic, so I think he picks that up. Wide influence. We listen to so many people. Roy Buchanan, who's an American blues player. Albert Collins, Robbie Robertson, guitarist from the band. Stan Ridgway, formerly of Wall of Voodoo. So all of that side. Lou Reed, Velvet Underground, Pink Floyd, and then from there, diverse. We'll go for the Small Faces, the Faces, and Jethro Tull. Just and again, some are lyrics, some are music, but all of them are musicians, and that to me is the important thing. And dance music is dance music. You don't need 5 people to write a song and then have someone else play it. We do it ourselves. So, and it's not calling out anyone, but it's saying, there's an instrument, we play it. for me, part of it was money. In other words, at the time, I wasn't working a lot. So I found that I could make a bit of money from busking. And then as I travelled around the world, I found that I could go to a bar, they'd give us a few bevies, some food, and I'd play. So it actually got to a point where, and in those days there was obviously a lot of cover songs were being played. And I didn't seriously think about writing for a long time. I just played what people wanted and what I enjoyed, you know, the Tom Pettys and the Floyds and the Lou Reeds, etc. So I really started off musically thinking that this would be a good way to make a living. I mean, obviously, it's a hard way of making a living, as you find out over time. Whereas Rob, who's the guitarist with The Date, I think it was his brother or his cousin left his guitar and went back to Indonesia, and Rob picked it up when he was, 9 or 10, and just started to play. So for us, I mean, our drummer is, I think he's drummed for a number of years now, in different bands, and he had a bit of a life-changing moment a few years ago where he managed to come off a motorbike at some ungodly rate of knots, and consequently lost part of his leg. So he's come back from that, and if anything, I think it really focused him on doing what he wanted to do, which is obviously living. So for all of us, I think part of it's the adrenaline as well, being on stage, and the feeling that as you release music, you're actually given something back. You're actually putting part of it out. And we don't really look back on what we've released. We're always looking forward, where we write reasonably prolifically. So we don't tend to sort of ponder history, but we're very focused on writing new stuff and continually delivering new stuff to the market.
So where do you think these days rock music's actually going? Because the internet has obviously changed everything. The demise of the traditional record label, who these days only seem to put out differently packaged greatest hits every Christmas by the same bands over and over again. How can independent artists survive? What do you need to do to adapt?
I don't think you've got to play live. That seems to be where it's at. But I think you also have to release music. You can't just sit back on an album or a single and think, well, I'm doing well. If you're not constant about what you do, there's no reason for people to see you. You know, you can't just do your best 10.
Has the Date ever thought of going overseas?
Absolutely, love to. America, Europe, I reckon our music would be embraced over there. I think locally, obviously, it's fairly lean in Perth. We're very isolated as a city. There's a lot of good bands here. Not as many venues though, so a lot of venues are closing. But saying that, new ones open. But it's quite difficult, or I mean, we find it difficult to get a consistent audience. Promoters obviously want more people on a Tuesday night in the rain. So, for our point, we'd love, Europe, America, festivals, clubs, gigs. We love playing, and we will play anyway. So. I would probably be somewhere between Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon and Lou Reed's probably Street Hassle, I think, for me, would be the one. That or Coney Island Babe. They're the two, because and mainly for the sound of it, like how it's still like Dark Side of the Moon, still benchmarking sound, like it consistently sounds good, and it's such a motive playing, and they pull it out in the studio. Fabulous. Whereas Lou Reed's just like, I mean, that would have been one hell of a session. You know, that's the sort of thing you probably wouldn't remember it if you were there. But again, creatively trying to jam so many different things into an album, and his changes, you know, album to album. He never sat there and went, I'll just write another album. The other two.
So is that what makes a good album for you? Is it something that sonically is challenging but also interesting lyrically, interesting, I guess thematically, and as far as diversity is concerned, it sort of makes you think. Is that?
Yeah, definitely. And it doesn't have to be deep and meaningful. It just has to be well written and lyrically inventive. You know, so the English language, or any language, is an amazing. It's like a playground. You can get in there and you can mix and move words up. And when I hear people writing in such a way, and many people do it, where you know, between the sound of the harmonica or the saxophone, the drum beat, the guitar motif, you actually know you're in the setting, you're on the chair, you're looking at the beach, you're walking down the alleyway. You know, that to me is, you know, it's sort of like making little movies that when they come through, you can picture what they're doing, the lyrics help. That's what I look for. Meaning of life, music, probably the G string, I would say, would be as close as I can get to the meaning of life. And always have the volume up. You know, there's probably not much else. Don't sleep too much either. It's a hell of a waste of time. All right. So we've got a new album coming out at the end of June. It's called MASTERDATE. It'll be available across all the record stores if there's any of them out there. Details are at thedate.com.au. So obviously we're Perth, we're Australian. And 10 tracks. There's a couple of singles have already come off it, with extra bonuses on, because we're good like that. So if you get a chance, have a look for it, and check the Rockpit, because they'll hear about it first.